in this part, we're going to make it rain. And in this part, we're going to learn a couple of things. One of the important things we're going to learn is how to use one simple little action script statement in order to control a MovieClip timeline, which is going to be important for us. So let's make a new movie. This time, I'm not going to bring anything over from the old movie because I want to start out fresh because we're not doing bikes anymore. Okay, let's go ahead and save this. Call it Make It Rain. Oops, I almost spelled my last name there. It's easy to do when you get used to typing things. Now, what we want to do first is, what is it? No single drop feels responsible for the flood. We want to start with a single drop. And actually, the only animation we're going to have is this single drop. Everything else is going to be done through timeline manipulations and structure. I take that back. We're going to actually do a second one to do something kind of cool towards the end. But for now, we're going to make a single drop. So, a couple of ways to do this. We could animate this on the main timeline and then push it into a symbol. We can copy it over into a symbol. Or we can just create our drop and then animate in place. Because really, I want to know where the bottom of the stage is and where the top of the stage is to do this. So the first thing I'm going to do is create my drop, and it's going to be this kind of whitish color, no yellow stroke on it. It's going to be very small. Okay, we're going to make a we're actually going to make an elongated thing here. Okay, that's going to be our drop. I'm going to select it and convert it to a symbol and put it into a symbol, and we're going to call this drop underscore art. Now, I'm going to do something kind of weird here. I want to create Dropfall. That's going to be my symbol name, Dropfall. But I want to see where the stage is because I want it to fall from the top of the stage down to somewhere below the stage. So if I were to do that in the symbol editor by doing insert new symbol and then dragging drop art, I'd have to set up some guides. I wouldn't be able to see exactly what's happening. And so instead, what I'm going to do is something that's a little bit counterintuitive. I'm going to take this instance of drop art, that symbol that we just made, and I'm going to convert it to a symbol. Basically, I'm saying, okay, take this instance and wrap it in a symbol as well. And that's actually doing the exact same thing as choosing insert new symbol and dragging that instance into the new symbol. We're just doing it in context, and that's going to allow us to see where the edges of the stage are so that we can make our path correctly. Okay, so I'm going to I didn't select the instance. I selected the frame there. Convert to symbol. And we're going to call this drop underscore fall. MovieClip is good for this because we don't want it to just play once. Okay, so we have drop fall. Now, we're still on the main timeline. If we double-click our instance, we're doing something called editing in place or editing in context. And what that does is that allows us to see our symbol's registration point, the artwork or the instance that's inside of our symbol called Dropfall, but we can also see the stage at the same time. And that's pretty important to me. I'm going to say this instance is raindrop takes 1/2 of a second to fall from the top to the bottom. So I will insert a keyframe and shift drag this down to the bottom. Like so. And I want it to fall off the bottom. Create my motion tween. Oh, I did it wrong again. Sorry. And then create a classic tween here. So I have the drop falls from the top to the bottom. Okay. Remember, we are looking at this in context. If we were to look at this on the symbol editor, this is what we'd see. Which, we see that it's falling, but we can't really have any idea of the context of it. Now, I got into this symbol editor by double-clicking here. I got into it editing in context by double-clicking on some visible area of the symbol. Okay? I'm just doing that. I wouldn't necessarily have to do it this way. I'm really doing that just so that we can see that there are multiple ways of doing the same thing. Now, I'm going to do something, well, let's go ahead and look at our movie. Right now, we've got a leaky tap, or we've got a very small cloud. We want lots of these drops. If I were to come in here on my main timeline and just make more of these, we'd have something really kind of weird. We'd have something that doesn't look like rain at all. Have you seen those displays that are computer-controlled nozzles that shoot water, and they turn them on and off really fast, and they can actually make like logos and words and things that seem to fall? That's kind of what we're doing here. So the problem is that these are all MovieClip timelines, and they are all falling. They're all starting and ending and looping at the same time. I'm lazy. I don't want to make another raindrop symbol. So I wonder if there's a way that I could make it rain differently. And that, indeed, there is. We're going to take these, and I've selected all the instances, and then we're going to do this. Actually, you know what? I still don't have enough. I want more. I'm going to select all these, hit Option, like so. Select a few more, hit Option again. Then we're not going to make perfect rain today. We're going to actually see some patterning in this, just because it's more important for you to be able to see what's going on. It gets harder to see when it's random. So what I'm going to do here is I want to space these evenly across the stage, which I can do with my Align panel by selecting one. I selected the rightmost one. I will align it to the stage like that. Select the leftmost one and align it to stage like that. And we can't even see that unless I make it smaller. Okay, so I put up my two end ones. Now if I select them all and choose Distribute Evenly, that'll put them evenly across. So normally we wouldn't be doing rain like this. We'd add in some more randomness. But you might want this kind of effect too. So how do we make these things out of sync with each other? Well, we know that once placed on stage, a MovieClip will start playing its timeline. And it'll start playing its timeline at frame 1. Then it will continue to loop its timeline no matter what its parent timeline is doing, because it's a bicycle. So what we're going to do is use that knowledge that we've got in order to create a symbol that's going to be called drops many. Okay, and take this, select all of these, modify, convert to symbol. This is one of those ways that it's easier to do it this way, because I've got all these instances, I've placed them on stage where I want them to be. Now I can convert them to a symbol. So I'm going to convert these to a symbol, and I'm going to call these Dropfall Mini. MovieClip is still good. Okay, there it is. Now let's go inside, and I want it to edit this in symbol edit mode just to get rid of the distraction of the stage here. Okay, so inside each of these is a little miniature movie. We can double click to see it. You can see, okay, there's that little miniature movie, because we're inside an instance of Dropfall that's inside Drop Many. Okay? If we select all of these, Flash has a very nice feature, modify, timeline, distribute to layers. What that's going to do is take each one of those instances that I've placed on stage and distribute it to its own layer. You can see now I have many layers. In fact, I have a bunch of them. It does leave an empty layer at the top, which is okay, because we're going to use that in a minute. Okay, it also names it for whatever the name of the symbol is. Now, the idea here is that it looks like this because these things are starting at the same time. What if they were placed on stage sequentially so that they started their timelines at different times? Not a bad idea. Let's see that. First of all, we're going to need some frames out here in order to have some space to work with. I'm just going to choose an arbitrary number here. I'm going to insert frame, and Flash is going to fill it in. What if we took all of these? I can select down through a column of frames like that. Just click and drag through a column, and I'm going to move that column of keyframes over. So the first one starts, and then all the rest of them start sometime later. Oh, actually, it's the last one. Oops, actually, it distributed to layers funny, not in the way that I expected it to. See that one? The one that's off is right there. That's easy to fix that. Let's, I want it to go from left to right because I'm just that kind of person. But it's not going to do that for me. It's going to do it in the order that I made them. Oh well, that's okay. Anyhow, what we can do is start to change the times that these were placed on the stage. And what this is doing, oops, you have to be careful when you do this, because if you drag it onto another layer, it's going to place it on the other layer and maybe overwrite something. So you see, this movie clip isn't going to start playing its timeline until we get to frame 33. But this one's not going to start until, because what we're kind of doing is like doing like this thing of where it's going to be a downpour that begins and then gets heavy later. So we want first a few sprinklings. And then the deluge. This is beginning to get into the part of Flash where we kind of have to start building a model for how this stuff works, because we're not going to be able to see exactly what's going on all the time. And the best thing I can tell you is that that's just something that comes with some experience, and it does happen. Oops. And you may founder or flounder around a bit at first, but that's okay. That's what my assignments are made to do, make you do that. So what happens here is, as I'm reading my timeline like a musical score, I can see I start on frame 1 with only one symbol on stage, symbol instance on stage. Then I get another one at frame 4. Then I get another one, this one down here, at frame whatever it is, 7. And then as we go, we keep getting more and more and more. They populate. Okay? So it's building up gradually. Let's put an instance of this on stage. What do we have? Drop, fall, many. Boy, oh boy, is this hard to see. That's my symbol that's got all that rain in it. And I really can't, if there were nothing on the first frame of it, I wouldn't be able to see anything at all. Okay, so what we're going to do here is something kind of temporary. And we're going to make a line that's the top of this. We're going to use that extra layer that we had. We're just going to call it guide. So I will choose my line tool and choose that pink stroke, because pink stroke means I know that in the end I won't be planning on seeing this. I'm just going to make ooh, it's huge. Make myself a line here. We're going to change this style to hairline. That makes it just as thin as it can be. We're also going to make it how about we make it the width of the stage, 550. Okay, because that's the width of all the symbols that I have on here. Okay. So what this is going to do is just show me where the artwork in this symbol is. Why you no show me? Did I make a mistake when I made that? Maybe I need to... Okay, forget the hairline. Let's just make it 1 pixel. There we can see it. Okay. So this is showing me the entire symbol. And now, when I put this on stage, you're going to see that it's almost good. What's the problem with this? Remember I wanted it to be like it starts pouring rain? Well, we start with a little bit of rain, and then we build up to a fair amount of rain, but then it jumps back to a little. What's happening here is that this MovieClip timeline, the many drops fall many, is looping. Now I could change this to a graphic symbol and tell it to just play once. But if I did that, I couldn't teach you ActionScript. Okay, and if I did that, I'd also have to make sure that I had some frames that are playing on here. What I want is a symbol that I can just plunk down anywhere and say, rain. You know, I can stick it outside a window, I can stick it on a cat, you know, I can stick it anywhere. So what we're going to do is add a bit of ActionScript, because what we want to have happen here is we want for our timeline of our mini drops, we want for this to play and sequentially add these drops like so, and we know that these are all movie clips inside, so they don't care what their parent timeline is doing. They're just going to rotate, they're just going to loop around and around and around. So what we want this playhead to do is stop once everybody is on stage. And you'll find this is very easy to do. We need to put a new layer on here. By convention, this layer is called Actions. By other conventions, it's called Code. Depends on who's doing it. By convention, it is at the top. It is always the top layer. And our actions, what these are, is they are instructions to this timeline. They're saying, you know, this timeline, do something. Okay, this is the timeline of Dropfall Many. Now, we can talk to MovieClip timelines. We can't talk to graphic symbol timelines. We can talk to the main timeline with ActionScript. So what we're going to do is put a keyframe here at the very end. Also, by convention, your actions layer should be locked, because you will never want any kind of artwork on your actions layer, because you may have to move stuff around. I'm going to select this keyframe. We can see we've got a frame selected. We can see down here it's frame 51. I'm going to open the Actions panel. If you don't have this available here, it's this thing with the little arrow. Come up to your window and choose, where is it at? Actions. Okay? And add this to your default workspace. Open up the Actions panel and click. And first of all, we want to check a couple of things. The main thing we want to check up here is this is the layer name and this is the frame number. So what this thing up here is telling me is that we are in the layer named Actions. We're on frame number 51. And I want to tell this timeline to stop. This is something called a function call. And in programming, functions are pre-built sets of functionality, hence the title. They are actually pre-built sets of instructions. Okay, here in this, associated with this name stop, is a set of actions that makes this timeline stop. This is something that this timeline knows. Now, I'm saying this timeline because I'm saying this timeline stop, not some other timeline. This gets hard now to speak without saying this when I mean this timeline or this subject or this lecture. This isn't necessarily necessary, okay? If you were to simply put stop here, that's fine too. I just wanted to put this there. I just wanted to put this there because you'll see it both ways. If you just put stop on a frame action, this is implied, the keyword this, okay? So you'll see it both ways, this dot stop or simply stop. This is just telling us stop this timeline on frame 51. So whenever, let's make our frames a little bigger now. Whenever Flash is playing merrily along, it's playing this movie clip that has placed all these instances on stage. They are playing internally. They're movie clips that can play without any regard for what this playhead is doing. This playhead gets to this frame, and the first thing it does is it looks at this action. And this action says stop. And what that does is that makes it so that this playhead no longer loops back to the front. It just stays parked here. Can we prove this to ourselves? Yes, we can. Let's put another layer here. And this is going to be a temporary layer. This is, well, now I feel self-conscious about using the word this. Okay, this layer this is my big bright glob technique. Okay, sometimes you don't have any idea of what a movie clip is doing, and you kind of want to know if it's stopping on a certain frame. So what I'm going to do is put a keyframe on this very last frame, same one, right above the actions, and I'm going to put a big bright glob on it. Okay, we'll just take our brush tool, and again, this is something that I don't expect to see, so I'm going to put this big bright glob. I'm actually going to fill it. So, the movie clip, well, that startled me for a second. It was just a little slow to update. This movie clip called Dropfall Many has one keyframe on it at the very end with this big glob that looks kind of like a fat bird with a flat top haircut. Active imagination here. Okay. Let's test our movie. Play, they're adding them to it. Now, the timeline with all those drops on it has stopped. It stopped and parked itself on frame 51, which has that big bright glob on it, but the drops continue to play. Okay, so now we have rain. You can make it rain more, and you can make it rain more randomly by actually going deeper with this, putting more of these layers, more of these frames, more drop falls. One other technique that people sometimes do is they take and make the falling path longer, so it falls to like 200 or 300 pixels below the stage, and then start them at different heights. And as long as you start it above the top of the stage, it'll work. One last thing I want to do, though, is show you how we can make this even a little more cool. And what we're going to do is change our drop. I mostly want to do this because I want you to get an idea that things are kind of fluid. What I really want to do is have this drop that's not a hard-edged thing. That would be like hail. I want something that's a little bit more ephemeral. I want something that's more, hazy or something like that. Something that looks blurry. That was the word I was looking for, blurry. So I want to put a blur filter on this. But I want to be even sneakier about it. I want it to blur more as it goes faster. I could come in here to this symbol, drop fall, and try to do it here. Make it blur there and stuff. However, this could cause issues if I wanted to use this, if I wanted to change stuff about this or anything. So I just want to show you a faster, kind of cooler way to do this that actually gives us a chance to change symbols in the library and all that stuff. Okay, I'm going to take this symbol called drop art. Remember, drop art contains only this merge shape. What's a name? A rose is a rose is a rose is a rose. I'm going to call this symbol, no longer am I going to call it drop art. I'm going to call it drop blur animation. So I no longer have a drop underscore art symbol. Now I have this symbol with the name drop blur animation. So since I haven't used that name, I can select, oops, I got the wrong thing again. I can select this and convert it to a symbol. Now look where we are. We're inside drop blur animation. I'm going to convert this to symbol. What I'm going to call it? Drop art. Okay, see what I've done there? It's like I changed the name here to blur to what I want it to describe, and then I took that artwork and wrapped it in another symbol with the name that I want it to be. Over the course of 12 frames, what this is going to do is go from looking like, oops, I didn't want to insert my keyframe yet. Sorry. We're going to add a blur filter here. If you're going to add a blur filter to a MovieClip symbol, you want to do it before you make your tween. Okay, that way it'll be, that blur filter will be copied over into the last keyframe. So we come up to our properties, click the instance. I'm going to hide the library for this. Come under filters and choose plus blur. I don't want it to blur in the X because that's side by side, side to side. And it's now, these are locked, so it's not blurring in the Y either. But I don't want it to be blurry at the top. I want it to be totally nice and sharp and egg-like when it begins. When I get to the end, I want it to have a blur on it. Okay, so I've made my keyframe. Select, and here we're going to change the blur Y property. We're going to just start cranking it up so it looks kind of like that. I'm maybe kind of overdoing it on this. So it starts like that, and over the course of 12 frames it ends like that. Put our motion tween in, or our classic tween here, and you can see that now that symbol that I've used in my drop fall animation is now doing this. Because what happened whenever I changed the name, the library name, from drop art to drop blur animation, what that did is also changed the name in the fall tween, because changing the name doesn't change the symbol. You know, it just changes what it's called in the library. So now, test your movie, and we can't see anything. Well, you can kind of see it start to blur. Just for the sake of illustration, I'm going to change my frame rate down to 6. And I'm also going to zoom in here. However, yeah. Now, since I made the blur animation 12 frames long and the falling 12 frames long, it's getting completely blurred by the time it gets to the bottom. Okay. One more thing? Can we do one more thing? We can do one more thing. This is rain, okay? Oh, let's speed it up again. I'm going to actually speed it up to 18. You guys should not monkey around with your frame rate unless it's just to see something. I'm just doing it because I made the animation too fast. Okay, let's, maybe this isn't enough rain. you could actually make a copy of this symbol. Okay, I'm going to just take this symbol and drag another, or actually, you know what, why don't we do this? I'm going to copy it and paste it in place on a new layer, or just paste it on a new layer. It's hard to move these symbols because you have to be able to select something that's filled. And what we'll do, let's offset this one a little bit so that now we have more raindrops. They are coming down in pairs, which is not so good. But you could do the same thing by offsetting their start times and another symbol. But the reason why I wanted to do this is because this one, we're going to come in and take its color effect and change its alpha down to maybe, let's see what looks good. How about 38%? And so what this would do is make it look like you've got rain off in the distance as well. One thing you could do, just a quick, cheap way of making them a little more random, is you can come to Modify, Transform, Flip Horizontal. And that way you don't see them quite, they're not coming down quite exactly in pairs. Okay, so we've made it rain. You can very much elaborate on this. You can actually take the same technique that we did to make Dropfall many. What if you took this Dropfall many and put it inside of another symbol called Dropfall many many and put like 5 instances of this moved around and stuff? Then you get more rain very quickly. Do we have time for that? Sure we do. It'll take a second. I want to go back to the main timeline and get rid of this blurred out one. And I'm going to get rid of this. We're just going to make a new symbol. I'm going to call it Dropfall. Many, many. MovieClip, yes. We'll come out of our library. I'm going to do this as fast as I can because we're at the end of the class here. Put that on stage. Get out of my way. We're going to align this like so. Now what we will do here, we're just going to make some more instances of this, but we're going to do it a different way. How about we just make a bunch of layers? And to make this easier, make them medium. I'm going to simply take this keyframe, option drag it to make a copy. You could probably do this with multiple ones. I haven't tried this in this new version of the program. Yes, it works. Basically, we're just trying to do this fast. Come out here. We don't care how many frames are here. We just need enough to offset these things. We're going to spread these introduction points around a little bit. We also, do we want this timeline to stop? Yes. We're going to introduce these one at a time, put them on the stage so that they loop and play their timelines. But we don't want this symbol to loop either. So we will come out to the end frame. I use this instead. Put our new layer in. Remember, it's going to be called Actions. Lock it so that we don't put any artwork on it by mistake. Come in, put an F6 to put a keyframe. Open our Actions panel. This time we'll just tell it, stop. Whoops. I do this a lot. This is a new kind of not good thing. It's giving me the blinking cursor, but it's not selected in there, so it was changing my tools. Notice it does turn blue, and that means that Flash recognizes it. These parentheses do have to be there. That's what makes this a function call. Actually, this is called the function call operator. Semicolon has to be there as well. Okay, so this timeline will also stop once it's introduced all those. And now I forgot to put an instance on the stage. But that's easy to remedy. Dropfall many, many. Now we have lots of rain. However, something I have done has made, wow, that's kind of neat, but it's not what I wanted. I would have to figure out something is in sync. Probably what happened was I put the wrong number of frames inside the many, many symbol. In this case, you really want to have let's see if we can remove some frames from this. This always happens when I want to do something just at the end really quickly that I haven't planned on. I will figure out why this is happening and record a little short thing to tell you, because actually it's kind of cool if this was what you wanted. This isn't what we want, so. I wonder how many. I'll quickly see if we can figure that out. "51 frames in Dropfall many." Something is bringing them into sync. But I'll have to think about that. Anyhow, that's it for tonight. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.